Okay guys, moving on to task 5, part 3. We're going to look at assembling our parts from part 1, the U section, and then our offsets from part 2. We're going to combine them together, practice a bit of soldering and complete the water diviner in 15mm. So this is all about soldering, guys. Some things that you need to remember before soldering: we need to make sure that we've got the correct PPE in place. So we need to make sure that we're wearing eye protection, a heat mat to protect the fabric of the building. So it may be not necessary in this environment, but if you were soldering in somebody's house, something like that, obviously you want to look after the customer's house. We also need to make sure that there's a fire extinguisher in place, and there's a fire extinguisher in the workshop, so I know that I'm good to go. So with all the right safety precautions in place, we are then going to move on to preparing our joint ready for soldering. So to begin with, we need to make sure that we clean our pipes. We can take an abrasive strip of sorts. Some people use wire wool. I don't personally like that because you get splinters. It's a bit messy. So we can just use an abrasive strip. What we need to do is we need to make sure that we clean our pipe all the way around. Okay, so it takes away the oxidization, nice and clean. Okay, prepare the ends of our pipe. Make sure you clean each bit of pipe, okay? It's really important, guys, that we clean all the dirt or contaminants away because it will stop the solder from running, which could then lead on to a leak. Okay, once we've cleaned our pipe, we're happy that it's all clean, okay? Then we want to make sure our fittings are also clean. You can get that in there, give it a little clean. Typically with a new fitting, the inside of the fitting will be pretty good and you shouldn't need to worry about it too much, but just give it a check, make sure that you're happy with the condition of it. Okay, so we've got a coupler. We then need to apply our flux, okay? This is what we call an active flux. So it is harmful. You don't want to get it on your fingers, so make sure that you're using a brush, okay? What we do, in fact that's too much, you don't need much of this, okay? Pop it on, and probably about as wide as the brush. You just want to run your brush round, all the way round, okay? Be careful not to go down the pipe, because wherever the flux goes, that's where the solder will want to run, okay? Once you've put the flux on, be careful, don't put the end down, because if it picks up any contaminants, that can, again, it can make your joint. So it make your joint leak. So what you want to do then is just pop your fitting on, make sure it's fully pushed home. Okay, so that's in place. I'm just going to pop that on there. We then need to make sure that we've got flux. One. Flux each of our joints. You don't need too much of it, guys. It needs to be covered, but you don't want loads of excess, okay? All the way around, push that home. Okay, there we are, so that's prepared. So we need to make sure, guys, it's really important that we take care of preparing our pipework at that phase there, because it really makes a big difference when we get around to soldering. Right, okay, so our joints are made up, it's put together. Now you can do a couple of things here. You could either pop this in a vise, or for me, you just want to hang this just over the edge of the bench. Move it far away enough from the edge of the bench that we're not going to damage the bench with the blowtorch. If you like, what you can do is perhaps put a counterweight on, something like a steel rule at the other end, okay? Have a look through the frame, make sure you're happy that it's all straight and flat. Adjust it if needs be. That's pretty good. Okay, so we're ready for soldering. So let's make sure our eye protection's on. Then going to get our blowtorch. Blowtorch come in different variations. Some have a control on the back of the valve which allows you to dial down the flow of gas and reduce the temperature of the flame. This one is fixed, so it's as simple as making sure that the ignition's in the on position, and then you just pull the trigger. Then what you want to do before you get going, get yourself set up nicely, boys, okay? So I'm right-handed, so I tend to use my right hand, the steadier hand, for applying the solder, okay? I draw out a length about 6 inches long, put a return on it, and what that does, that allows me to work sort of more naturally without me having to distort my arms and hands to get around. So I'm going to look to apply my heat to one side and my solder to the other side of the joint. And by doing that, I'm going to look to use capillary action to draw the solder around the fitting towards the heat. I don't want to put my flame and my solder in the same place, because if the pipe on the back edge hasn't heated up fully, it may not run all the way around. So, here we go. I'm going to apply my heat, I'm going to keep it constant, you don't need to wave it about. I'm going to watch the colour of the flame. It will start to turn a little green. Once the colour of the flame changes, the joint is heated up enough. Not the steadiest of hands, as you can see, I'll put it on the fitting. So what you want to do is really aim to get it right on the joint, okay? But there we are, that's the first one created. Moving on to the next one. What you want to do is move the flame away as you put the solder on as well. Because if you use the flame to melt the solder rather than the pipe, you'll end up with blobs of solder. What you need to do is make sure that the heat of the pipe is drawing the solder around rather than the flame melting the solder onto the pipe. Okay,